Hello and welcome to Irish Football Fan TV. I'm delighted to be joined by former Republic of Ireland international Andy Reid. Andy, how are you keeping?
Yeah, very well, thanks. I'm busy, surprisingly enough, with this strange time. But I've had loads on. But luckily, myself and my family were all healthy. So touch wood on that moving forward.
Yeah, it's good to see that you're keeping busy. I know you're doing a lot of webinars and so on. I've seen you appearing on the FAI page there the other day doing a webinar as well. Are you adapting to coaching life quite well? Seems like you're really enjoying it.
Yeah, I have to. I'm loving it. I've got to be honest with you. It's great. I'm in a real good place with it at the moment. I'm learning loads all the time. I'm trying to share my knowledge with other people. I'm trying to gain knowledge from other people. I'm reading lots of literature on football tactics and mindset. How can we get the best out of players? I'm watching loads of stuff. There's tons of stuff on the internet that's really, really good stuff. I'm putting together presentations that I'm doing for people, as you mentioned, doing webinars. So I'm learning loads at the moment. I was really, really keen that when this all happened, and we're not in work every single day in the normal sense of the word. I was really keen that I continue to learn and that I continue to improve to get better at what I'm doing. So I've really done that. I've been to what you normally do when you're just out on the training pitch and when you're, but we always kind of moan that we don't have time to read this and that we don't have time to kind of look at this video and watch this and speak to this person, speak to that person. So this is a great opportunity for a different type of learning.
And it seems as though, obviously, you're flying now at this stage, and it's good to see that you're kind of using the time to put energy into different things that maybe, as I said, in normal days work that you wouldn't have maybe been able to focus on. So that's good that you're able to switch the focus for temporarily anyway for now.
Yeah, well, I think you have to. And I think football's always constantly evolving. And I think you have to move with it and you have to find different ways. You have to be innovative. Yeah, you want to take on board things that have gone before, take on board things that have been successful from other people. But you want to bring your own kind of stamp to it as well. You want to come up with something a little bit different. And that's what I've been trying to do in this time. How can I improve myself tactically? What can I watch that's going to make me just a little bit of a better coach? How can I communicate a little bit better with people? And surprisingly enough, so much good will come in a football sense from this. I mean, we've learned so many different ways of communicating with players, of getting tactical information across to players from long distance. This is stuff that, okay, it was there before, but we weren't really honed in on it. And now, because of what's happened, we've had to. So this will improve us when we go back, and I know it'll improve me. It'll improve my communication skills. And if I can get things across to players in a little bit of a better way, a little bit more of a detailed way, then that's great.
Yeah, I can tell by the way you're talking how passionate you are about it. It's great to see. I think we'll come back to maybe at the end kind of on what you're doing in terms of the coaching with Ireland and Forest a little bit. But basically, we had you on to talk about your career, basically from your early days. And I suppose in a way that will show how football has evolved in that time frame from when you were a young lad to now. But what are your earliest memories in football that kind of made you fall in love with football?
My earliest memories of real, I suppose my earliest memories of watching football. I remember watching Ireland against England in Euro '88. I would have been 6, something like that, and I just have vague memories of it being on in the house and me kind of watching it. But my earliest kind of conscious memories of football is going to watch my dad play for Fatima Rangers. They used to play the home games up in Brickfields, but we used to in Drimnagh. But we used to go all over the place. We used to go all over Dublin, watching them. They play on a Sunday, and they're my they had some good players in that Fatima team, and they were quite successful at junior level. So I would have to say that going to watch my dad play for Fatima Rangers, what would I have been, 7, 8, 9, 10, would be probably my earliest memories of conscious memories of football.
Okay, I know what you mean there when you say conscious, because like you have a lot of memories, but the ones that really stand out. But who was your hero growing up then for football?
I've always been a big Maradona fan, and you know, I still am today. And me and you were talking before we kind of went on here about documentaries, and I was on about the Barcelona documentary that I watched only last night, and it's absolutely fantastic. But even more recently, not too long ago, I watched the Maradona one, and I don't know if you've watched it, but
I've seen that one, yeah.
You know, absolutely fantastic. I mean, the guy was a genius. You know, he was. In fact, he was left-footed as well. I like his, you know, just watching him kind of glide around the pitch. What he done with Argentina at the World Cups, and you know what he done with Napoli as well. I mean, you know, dragging Napoli from a kind of mid to bottom of the table side and bringing them through to win the Italian league twice, I think it was, wasn't it? They won the UEFA Cup, and you know, and I know people will say, "Oh, yeah, but you know, he's done this wrong, and he cheated, and he done this, and he done that." Well, you know what? Not everybody's perfect. You know, well, everybody has character flaws. Everybody has issues that they've had to deal with. But you know, take all that aside. What a phenomenal footballer! What a phenomenal character in the game, you know, and somebody that, you know, I love. I still now, you know, I look back and I see videos of him now warming up with music on, and he's dancing and doing keepy ups, and I kind of look at him and you know, he's just got that something, you know, he just had that something special, and it kind of gives me, you know, I always loved watching the style of player that he was anyway, the way he used to be able to ghost past people and the goals he used to score. But the fact that he had a bit of character about him as well, you know, I like players, and you know, and even now as a coach, I say to my players, I like players to have a little bit of character about them. You know, I think it's very, very important. I like to see a player just have that little bit of steel about him, a little bit of something different. You know, he's not afraid to try something. He's not afraid to put it up to somebody. I like that, and you know, and I think you look at Maradona, he had that in abundance, and that's what, you know, I think that partly draws me towards.
Yeah, he definitely had that X factor.
He does, and not very many players kind of over the years kind of really had that, you know. And the players that do, they really, really stand out. And he's somebody that, you know, he was a hero of mine growing up, and you know, in football in terms, he still is now.
Yeah, I obviously see why. I mean, he you know, the way he's so highly spoken of now, and even like you look at that Napoli documentary. I mean, the whole city of Napoli absolutely adore him. You know.
Yeah, listen, and rightly so. Listen, I think football, it's great to have heroes in football, you know, and when you are a footballer, you know, you have to kind of understand that you are a hero to a lot of people, and it's a big responsibility to take on board, and sometimes it can be a difficult responsibility to burden, and I can only imagine what the responsibility was like that he kind of felt, you know, and that having the responsibility of the whole afternoon, when Napoli took to the field, it was him who had to kind of try and come up with that little bit of magic. And with most games that he played, he probably had 2 men marking him, you know. So for what he came out with and what he achieved, and you know, the World Cups with Argentina as well, especially the kind of the '86, you know, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of run out of words to say about Diego Maradona. Unfortunately, I wasn't born when he was playing, but I've seen all the highlights, and obviously, you know, watch things like documentaries to see how good he was. You know, my generation now, kind of, I was lucky for Zidane, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and then now it's obviously Ronaldo and Messi going toe to toe, which is brilliant to see.
I can speak. I can speak from experience. Them three players that you've just mentioned were top class players. Yeah, they were top notch players.
Yeah, well, look, and I'm sure we'll get to that when we talk about Ireland. But talk me through your schoolboy career then, and kind of getting up to the point where you turned pro.
Well, I was actually playing for a team. I only played for them for a few weeks actually. Teresa's Gardens. My mum is from she's from Teresa's Gardens. So I played for a team down there for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and there was a coach, a very well known coach up around Crumlin in that area, who was he managed teams at Lourdes Celtic, called Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy, I think he seen me play in one of the games, and he knocked on the door, and my dad knew him from growing up, because my dad had an association with Lourdes and that when he was younger, and my dad knew him, and Jimmy asked me dad if I'd go and play for them, and obviously Sundrive Park was just up the road from the house where we grew up on Clogger Road. So I said, yeah, I'll go up, and I went up, and we had a really good team. So that was kind of about with Lourdes Celtic. Had 2 or 3 years with them. We won a couple of cups, and unfortunately Jimmy left then, and the team kind of disintegrated then a little bit. But 4 of the players, myself and 3 other lads left first, just as the team broke up, and went up to Cherry Orchard to play under Martin Begley up in Cherry Orchard, and then I came up then a couple of months later and signed for them. And again, Martin Begley was a fantastic coach. He was really good, and we won a couple of cups, and we might have won an All Ireland. Martin left to go off and do some different stuff, and another coach, and somebody who's still a really great friend of mine, Ray O'Toole, took over the team and managed the team, and his assistant was Jimmy Winters. So I had 4 or 5 great years up there. We won a couple of All Irelands, and Cherry Orchard, Lourdes, fantastic club as well, and and Cherry Orchard, brilliant. A club that's kind of really close to my heart, and people were very good to me, and still keep in touch with some people there. I've been in contact with people there, and they've asked me if I come over and do a presentation for their coaches. And also, take a session for some of the younger players and stuff like that. So it'd be great to go over and kind of catch up with everybody. When they opened the new training ground up the top of Ballyfermot there, I went up on the opening day when they had a tournament on there and spent the day with them, and it was great. So to go back up again it'll be fantastic, and I'll put on a present time, and as I mentioned, just to kind of give something back to a club that was very good to me will be a pleasure.
I'm sure that'll be lovely for both yourself and the club, playing with Ireland. When was it? Around what year was the Kenny?
I'm pretty sure it was 98 that we won the European Championships. And listen, it was absolutely fantastic, and it's funny that we're having this conversation, because I think the anniversary of it was only the other day, and we've got a group chat with all the players are on the group chat that kind of played in it, and we keep in touch every now and again, and some people have put some stuff up, and Brian put it up, and there'll be pictures of Nola Riley was put up the other day, and we just had a good conversation about it, about realising how kind of special it was, and I think part of it at the time, I think we started to realise as we got closer to the final how special it was, but I'm not too sure we kind of grasped the full kind of severity of it. It's something that is still kind of really stuck with us even to this day, 20 years later. And some of the lads went on to have really good careers, or the lads have gone on to be successful in other areas, and but we've still always got that bond, and you don't get that often in football. And I think I had it in my early days when I got into the first team at Forest. I had it to a certain extent in the U team at Forest, and I had it with the under 16s as well. We had it a lot with the Ireland teams, and I think you think every single team that you play in throughout your whole career is going to be like that, but it's not. You don't have that camaraderie, you don't have that bond, you don't have that kind of togetherness with every single team that you play with. So I was very fortunate that I kind of managed to experience it quite a lot very early on in my career. And football changed over the course of my career as well, as it does over the course of everybody's career. But football wasn't so much of a football changing rooms and football clubs weren't so much of a social arena, and they're not nowadays. Getting drunk. I mean, to give you an example, we would get in kind of an hour and a half before we were supposed to get in, so we could sit in the changing room and all have a bit of crack with each other, all have a bit of laugh, bounce things off each other, and that doesn't happen now. You find players walking in 10 minutes before they're supposed to be in. They sit down, they're all sitting down on the phones, not really having that kind of conversation, not really having that, building that
camaraderie.
Yeah, and it's something that, as a coach, I would like to try and reintroduce and try and get my players as best I can to kind of really have that togetherness and, to understand what it's about to be a part of something and to create something really special, because that's what we did, by winning that under 16s, and the same, the under 18s done it in the same year with Steve McVale and Robbie Keane and players like that in the team. They won it the same year, and got to some playoffs, but I didn't win any cups, or I didn't win anything after the under 16. So you need to make sure that you maximise it, and it's a special thing to win something in football. Now, if that thing is the under 14 All-Ireland Cup, if it's the Kennedy Cup, if it's the Milk Cup, or if it's just your local junior cup, wherever it is, to win something in football, to achieve something in football is fantastic. So you want to try and give your players that drive and that determination to kind of really go for it,
Yeah, what did you think maybe off the back of that, how you got your move then to Forest?
Well, no, I'd already signed for Forest, okay? So I was already at Forest by this stage. So I signed for Forest from Cherry Orchard, and I'd moved over the summer before. So I'd been living in England for probably about 7 or 8 months when we won the under-16 championships. And there was a scout in Dublin for Forest called Desi McGowan, and Desi sent me over on a couple of trials. They liked what they seen, and I've been on trials for quite a few clubs. Some of them I enjoyed, others I wasn't too keen on. Pretty much everybody that I went to, they all offered me a contract or offered me to kind of come over. So I had to kind of make a decision, and my parents, who bless them, they were very, very kind of level-headed about it all, and they asked me, where do you feel most comfortable? Where would you like to go and play a football? And the place that I felt most comfortable was Forest. So Forest brought my parents over. It was brilliant. It was perfect. And there was some Irish players over there already. So there was David Freeman, who I knew from just up the road. John Burns was over there as well. And me and Keith Foy were kind of going to be signing at the same time, and I played with Keith for Dublin representative teams and stuff like that. So I knew Keith as well. So it just felt really, really right. So we had the weekend over there with my parents and kind of pretty much agreed to sign. And then we got back, and then a couple of days later, a bunch of flowers arrives from my mum, from Frank Clark and Alan Hill. Frank Clark was the first team manager for us at the time, and Alan Hill was assistant manager. And as soon as the flowers came, then it was, that's it, you have to sign for Forest. My mum told me I had to sign for them. And she loved Frank Clark ever since. And when I see Frank about the club, because he's still involved in Forest, I always remind him of that.
That was very charming of him.
Yeah, well, but another thing that happened that weekend is it wasn't just my mad that got charmed. My dad did as well, because the head scout at Forest at the time was a chap called Ian Storymore. Now, Ian Storymore was a fantastic footballer from the 60s and early 70s, and played for Forest and then signed for Man United. Was seen as a replacement for George Best, and fantastic footballer. My dad, being a big Man United fan, knew exactly who Ian Storymore was. Now, when we were over there that weekend, Ian Storymore and his lovely wife, they took us out for a meal. So we all went out for a meal and kind of sat down talking. So we just went back after that weekend, and I think my mum and dad felt like I felt that it was just the right place for me to kind of go and play football. And looking back on it, I can't argue with it for a second. It's a club that I fell in love with from the start, and I still love it now. it's a club that's been very, very good to me, and I'd like to think that I kind of did my bit back for them as well. I'd like to think that I'm still kind of giving them some back, with the coach and trying to help the younger players as well.
Yeah, 100%. But do you want to talk me through your time then at Forest, like for your first spell there? Just talk me the whole way through from your own perspective.
Yeah, so I was very, very lucky, and I speak about this a lot. I worked with Brian Kerr with the underage international teams, and Brian was fantastic. Brian totally understood how to get not the best just out of me, but the best out of us all. Now, I was also very lucky that I had a coach, very, very different in styles and personalities, but also Paul Hart at Forest knew how to get the best out of players. And Paul was one of the best coaches that I've ever come across. He had a way of getting things across to you very, very simply, but very, very clearly. So you understood that when you stepped out he could explain to you what you wanted. So when you went out onto the pitch, you knew what was expected from you. So every time you went out on the football pitch, you knew what Paul wanted from you. It's something that I try and get across as a coach now, and it's something that I look back on as be really, really clear, especially with young players. And Paul was fantastic at that. So I had Paul for kind of 4 years at U team level, managed to kind of get into the reserves, and David Platt was first team manager. Now, I suppose one bit I should touch on the U team that we had was a very successful U team. We won the under 19 Premier League title. There's people like Michael Dawson in it, Jermaine Genius, David Prutton, Keith Foy was in it, John Thompson, who obviously got into the first team, played for Ireland as well, was in. So we had a very successful U team with loads of Irish players in it. People like Niall Hudson, Brian Cash, Niall McNamara, Barry Roach, Paul Fenton. I could name loads. And David Freeman, as I mentioned earlier, was a year older, 2 years older than me, and John Burns was a couple of years older again. So there was a massive piece for a young Irish player to be at that particular time. So we successful youth team, really good football from Paul Hart, from Ian McParland. Steve Wigley was a coach of us as well. John Pemberton, Chris Fairclough, coaches like this who we learned so much from. And then getting through into the reserves and doing okay. And then David Platt was the first team manager at the time, and gave me my debut. So I made my debut against Sheffield United at home, City Ground, Tuesday night game. The City Ground for me in night games are absolutely fantastic. There's a beautiful scene for me, the night games, as you're coming to arrive, especially in the winter. I think it might have been the end of January, start of February maybe when I made my debut. You come over Trent Bridge for a night game and the floodlights are on, and you can see the big Forest crest up on the side of the Trent End stand, and you drive over the river, and it's, for me, experiencing that on my way to make my debut for Forest. We played against Sheffield United. We managed to win 2-0, and I managed to get a goal on my debut as well, which was, kind of in the Trent End as well, which I know most grounds kind of have an end where it's a kind of a special kind of end, and the Trent End is that end. So to get a goal on my debut at the Trent End, us to win as well, 2-0, it was, without trying to sound corny and kind of say it's stuff dreams are made of, it is. My dream was kind of coming to reality kind of there and then. Really, really special time.
Yeah, well, it's like every kid's ambition is to grow up, sign for a pro club, and score a goal, as you say, in their end. So to me, it doesn't sound corny. Maybe to other people, but lead them off. But kind of touching on then, kind of breaking into the first team, and then I suppose coming into the Ireland setup. Then, do you want to talk me through how that kind of transition happened?
Yeah, well, I've been doing pretty well for the 21s. Don Givens was 21s manager, and I've been doing all right. I scored quite a few goals, but I don't think it was kind of Ireland's 21s performances that kind of got. I'd got to a stage where David Platt had left and Paul Hart had taken over as first team manager, and mentioned the players that I mentioned to you earlier on in the youth team. These players were starting to get into the first team now. Myself and John Thompson and Michael Dawson, Jermaine Genius had not long signed for Newcastle. So we had we had a really good team. We had David Johnson banging in goals up front with Marlon Harewood, Ricky Shimmick was a fantastic footballer, Jim Brennan left back, Matty Louis Jean right back. We had a really good team. And Paul Hart was the manager, had us playing great football, really exciting, playing out from the back. This was, this is kind of, 15, 16 years ago. We're playing out from the back, I said that coming in to try and get on the ball. We're passing through the turds, working our way up, and this is a long time ago, you know what I mean? So it's not just the last kind of 5 or 6 years that people have been playing out from the back. We were playing the great brand of football, and I was playing particularly well. I was playing left side of a diamond in midfield, and Brian had been to watch a game, and Brian knew what it was all about. He knew I could be a moody so-and-so every now and again, but he also knew that I had ability and that I could, and that I could make it. He believed that I could make a difference. So he called me into the squad for the Canada game. And it was my first time in the squad, and I kind of just thought, I'll ease my way in, and it'd be great. So I got called into the squad, and Brian knew what I was all about, and I was delighted, but I thought, he's calling me in, great. I can get to know some of the players, get to train with the players. It'd be brilliant. If I can get 5 or 10 minutes on the pitch and get a first cap, then great. And then he pulled me the day before, Brian did, and he says, "You're starting the game tomorrow." He said, "Don't, Danny, you're messing. Make sure you get yourself a good night's sleep. I want a good performance out of you tomorrow." So I was like, "Geez, I'm starting, brilliant, So I went to bed, rang all. They were all there. My dad, my granddad, ma, brothers, Dora, everybody was there. The whole lot of them turned up, and it was great. And I always remember lining up for the national anthem, and Lansdowne Road, and looking up and seeing my mum, my dad, my granddad. It was like, it's surreal, You kind of think to yourself, "Oh, what's going on here?" And singing the national anthem, and then the game started, and I played quite well, set up a goal, got man of the match, was really, really pleased with my performance, and again, if you to talk about debuts, my club debut went perfectly well, and my international debut went brilliantly well as well. We won 3-0, and I had a hand in a couple of the goals, and and the old Lansdowne Road, was just really, really special again, and just something that anything can happen in your life, and so anything can happen in your life, and anybody can try and shoot you down, and anybody can say, "Oh yeah, but you could have done this and you could have done that," but nobody can ever take them things away from you, them really, really special moments that I'm very, very lucky, because not many people get to experience them, So for me to have an experience, it was fantastic.
And I'm actually delighted for you now. Obviously, kind of later on, what's happening in your family, that the fact that your family were all there to witness that with you made it even sweeter, I'm sure.
Yeah, there was. Listen, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier on. A couple of years ago, I lost both my parents within a year of each other, and we'd be a very, very close knit family, with my parents and my 4 brothers and my nieces and my nephews. Our kind of our immediate family is. My ma, first of all, was really, really tough. It was tough on everybody, and probably none more so than my dad. And then kind of a year later, kind of took its toll on him, and then and we lost him as well. And people talk about things that aren't really the same when they go, and things haven't been the same. My dad was a big influence on the family, and my ma was the one who kind of held everything together, and they were kind of larger than life characters. So to lose them, it's been a tough time, as it would be for anybody. But from my perspective, I'd like to think that I made them proud. I know my under-16 medal was pride of place in the trophy cabinet that's up in the house in Clogher Road. It was set out, and you want to achieve things in football. You want to make a professional career out of yourself, and part of the reason that you want to do that is to try and make your family proud, and I'd like to think that I've done that I gave them plenty of proud moments.
Well, I definitely think you did, and I lost my father myself as well, so I know where you're coming from in that regard. But the fact, as I say, that they got to see you make your debut, get man of the match, and obviously you've got the other accolades there. You obviously mentioned the under-16 medal and stuff like that. So kind of going back to kind of look forward, I suppose in many ways they would have been proud of the career that you had.
Yeah, they were. My brothers used to always kind of give me a little bit of stick and say to me, "Ma, yeah, he's only your favourite because he's a professional footballer." And
Keith, was it?
Yeah, Keith would say that all the time. Yeah, yeah, but I'd like to think, listen, I think that they've all been proud of kind of what he achieved in the game, and it was great to kind of be able to do that and give them that. And because listen, let's not forget that my dad was a footballer as well, and played for Pax, and he was a very good footballer as well. And my dad understood the game really, really well. So it was almost great to do for him as well, and I always got that kind of sense of pride kind of beaming from him every time he came to watch me play. And they're nice things, they're nice things to kind of do and to kind of have, and and there's loads of pictures and there's loads of things, but the best things are up there. The best, the memories, the memories that you have of playing and after the game, to see them when you kind of done well. They're kind of special moments that I spent with my family.
Yeah, I suppose you obviously cherish them a lot more now, but kind of going back to Forest, and then you obviously left there to go to Spurs. So was it hard for you leaving Forest at the time? Because it sounded like you obviously loved your time there and spent a lot of years there. Like,
yeah, well, listen, it was and it wasn't. Forest, we got knocked out in the playoffs. Sheffield United had beat us in the playoffs, and it was gut wrenching, really. And as I mentioned, we had a really, really good side, but there was a few players out of contract, and the chairman and the owner of the club at the time, Nigel Dougherty, and he's since passed away, God rest him. And he was a fantastic chairman, but he was very, very realistic about what he could do to support the club, and he supported the club phenomenally well. I mean, I remember the club and he pumped a hell of a lot of money into the club, but he was at a stage where he couldn't really put much more in than what he was putting in at that particular time. So players who were out of contract unfortunately didn't get kept, and the team was subsequently weakened, and we didn't really bring in replacements. And Paul Hart, after a bad run, unfortunately got sacked, which was a big blow. Mick Harford took over, gone great with Mick Harford. Mick was great. Would have loved him to get the job. Joe Kinnear came in after Paul, and then Mick took over them for a bit from Joe when Joe got sacked. And then when Mick left, then Gary Megson came in, and listen, it was abundantly clear that I didn't really fit into the way that Gary Megson wanted to play football. I had an opportunity to go and play for Tottenham, top half Premier League club, where I kind of really want to leave Nottingham Forest and go anywhere. There was a great opportunity for me to go to a fantastic club, playing in the Premier League, and Forest to get good money for them. So me and Michael Dawson went as part of the same deal, and we both went down to London and signed on transfer deadline day.
and how was that for you then? From moving, say, from the Championship to the Premier League, did you find it was a hard jump to make?
I actually felt all right with it. When I went down, I kind of played pretty much every game for the first kind of 6-7 months, and there was a technical director there, Frank Arneson, who was really kind of doing all the signings. And in the summer, after I'd kind of gone there, he left and went to Chelsea. Martin Yall, who had been the head coach, kind of more became the manager and had more of an input into how things were trajectory, as opposed to kind of signing younger players and kind of trying to develop them. They started signing kind of more senior players and putting them on a lot of money. People like Edgar Davids came in and Mido came in, and they were on a lot of money. And I'm kind of sat there and I'm thinking to myself, you know, if it's between you know, a player who's on a hell of a lot of money and the money needs to be justified, and me kind of playing, am I going to play? And I didn't get the impression that that Martin Yall was going to play me all that much. And I wasn't. Listen, Tottenham's a fantastic club. I absolutely loved it. It was, you know, had a great time there, great experience playing with fantastic players. We just missed out on qualifying for the Champions League on the last day of the season, but qualified for Europe. You know, so I look back in it and I say probably personally wasn't a massive success, but I wouldn't say it was a particularly. I wouldn't say it was an unsuccessful one. Towards the end, I didn't really play as much as I could, and I was at the age where I can wait for 6 months or wait for a year. I just wanted to play week in, week out, and you know, with the players that Tottenham were signing, they couldn't kind of really offer me that. So, you know, an opportunity for me to sign for Charlton. Ian Dowie rang me and he asked me if I'd be interested in coming, and I was like, you know, they were in the Premier League at the time, Charlton. Alan Corbishley had just left. They'd been very successful in the Premier League as well, and Ian Dowie was trying to build something a little bit different and trying to put together a new squad, and would I be interested in going and signing for him? I liked the way he spoke. He came across really, really well, and rest is history. I went and signed for them because I felt like it was the right thing to do, and I think it was the right thing to do. I had 2 great years at Charlton, and it's a club. Charlton's another club that's very, very close to my heart. It's a club very similar to Forest in a lot of ways. It's a real family kind of club, and I don't know if you've ever been to the Valley, far from the kind of the O2 Arena, which used to be the Millennium Dome, and it's just got a real old football ground feel to it. So it's got a real tradition to it, and the club is such a friendly club. And anytime I've been back since I left, it's been brilliant. So I had 2 great years there. Had a couple of injuries. Unfortunately, we got kind of relegated, and in the Championship, then Alan Pardew would come in and he'd taken over. And I loved playing on the parts. I thought he was brilliant. He was great for me. He made me captain, and I was performing really, really well. Now the club, after they'd got relegated, they needed to raise some funds. So it came to January, and we were toured in the league. And you know, again, I was playing really well and really happy. And so my agent called me and he said, Sunderland are interested in signing you. And I said, we're toured in the league. So we've got a chance of getting promoted. He said, yeah, by the looks of things, Charlton, they need the money. So I rang up Alan Pardew and I said, you know, what's going on here, Gaffer? And he said, I'm trying to convince them that, you know, we need to keep you. We're going to, or else we won't get promoted. And he said, but, you know, they seem to need the money. So he says, you know, go and speak to Sunderland. So I went up and spoke to them, and again, things in football happen really kind of quickly. You know, I went up to kind of speak to Sunderland on the Friday morning, and then by the Friday evening, then everything had been agreed, and I rang. You know, I sat down with Roy, and Roy was really, really good. You know, Sunderland were toward bottom in the Premier. He told me what his plans were, and you know, again, how I would fit into them, and you know, from a football perspective, everything seemed all right. But you know, I was happy at Charlton. I didn't necessarily feel a mad need to kind of go. And I rang Alan Pardew again before I signed and spoke to him and told him, and he just said, you know, he was really, really good, to be honest with you. He said, listen, really, it's a great opportunity for you to go. The club need the money. I suggest it's probably, you know, best. He said, I'm gutted to kind of let you go. He says, I think it's probably going to take away our best chance of getting promoted this season. And I think in the end they ended up finished kind of 8th or 9th or something like that, which was disappointing because I would have liked to think that I could have helped if I stayed. But an opportunity to go again, play in the Premier League, play for somebody who's a hero of mine. Again, there was a big Irish contingent up there. 3.5 great years at Sunderland. I absolutely loved it. The people up in the northeast of England are great people. They're very, very similar to Irish people. I always found the real working class kind of people, and they're great company. Really, really passionate about the football club, and and to represent Sunderland, represent such a passionate following, and had some great times up there. Spent some great times up there. We managed to stay up the first season. Next season, Roy ended up leaving, and we managed to stay up again the next season. And then Steve Bruce came in and got off to a really, really good start. And I picked up an injury then just after Christmas and didn't play from just after Christmas till the end of the season. And then by the time I got back, I was going into my last year of my contract. The team was pretty settled, so I wasn't really kind of playing too much. So I ended up going to Blackpool then for 6 months, which was a completely different experience altogether.
Well, you kind of touched on your time at Spurs, Charlton, and then Sunderland. And in that time, you would have played with a lot of the top Irish players at the time. You would have been with Robbie at Spurs. You would have been with Matt Holland and Matt Kinsler. Were they still playing at Charlton with you?
Yeah, Kins wasn't, but I played with Matt Holland. Yeah.
And then obviously you spoke about the Irish contingent at Sunderland, and then there was Roy, the manager, as well. But did you find then when at international level that obviously helped when you have a couple of players playing the same club, kind of know your game, and it helped you more so on the pitch?
Yeah, I think so. It's always good to kind of hear a familiar voice, hobby at international level and at club level as well. I always felt he kind of knew that I could pick that forward pass, and Robbie's movement was fantastic. So I knew that if he was kind of coming towards the ball, he was going to spin in behind, or if he was going behind, he was going to come in and get the ball into his feet. And we had a bit of a decent understanding that we built up kind of over the time. And so little things like that kind of help. But listen, it's football's strange in that respect, in that you kind of get thrown in somewhere. You get on with people, and you get on with some people. You don't get on with some people, and that's it's not just football. That's part of normal life, So you have to adapt and you have to move on. But definitely having that familiar accent, I think helps. And there was loads when I went to Sunderland, because when I went to Sunderland, Liam Miller, bless him, was there. Daryl Murphy was there. I'm probably leaving someone out now, but it's a big kind of Irish contingent.
Greg Halford was.
Well, you see, no, I played with Greg at Forest, Greg Halford, but when I went to Sunderland from Charlton, Greg Halford went the other way as part of.
Sorry, yeah.
So I went permanently, and they sent Greg to Charlton on loan, so he went on loan. So I always used to joke with Greg. I used to say, when I left Charlton and you went down, we were in third place, and by the time you finished up the season, they were in 8th.
And so you took that one well.
Yeah, well, it's not easy for someone with an ego the size of Greg Halford's to take. I'm only joking. He's actually not a bad lad.
Well, just kind of, because you said you went to Blackpool then, but just in regards, because we kind of went away from the international stuff there, but you were kind of there with Brian and Steve leading on then. What was it like throughout the time there? Because we had a serious team in that time. I think that's, from my perspective, it's probably the best team we've had in a long time. It was yourself, Duffer, Clinton Morrison, Robbie, Matt Holland. I think Roy came back for a little bit just before, he was managing. And I haven't even got to the defence yet. Like so many
Well,
good
that's the
players.
thing. I mean, the defence was good as well. I mean, you just look at the right back slot. You had Stephen Carr and you had Steve Finnan, battling her out for a place there. Ian Hart left
Gary
back.
Kelly had just retired, didn't he?
Gary Kelly had just retired. You got Richie Dunn, Kenny Cunningham, Gary Breen. You could kind of play any of them. And Dunny was a rock. He'd Shea in goal. It was fantastic to be part of, and I think all the lads kind of look back on that qualifying campaign when we had France and Israel. I don't know how clearly you remember it, but
I was going to the games when I was a kid. There, yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, I mean the two Israel games. Well, first of all, when we went over to France away, we beat them. We drew 0-0, and they had a strong side. Vieira, Zidane,
Henry,
Thuram, Henry. They had a phenomenal side, but we were the better side against them, I thought, over there. Henry scored a brilliant goal. They beat us 1-0 at home. But the two games that really kind of done it for us were the Israel game. So Israel away, they equalised 3 minutes into injury time. Would have been an unbelievable result for us. And then Israel at home, we were 2-0 up at half time, and ended up drawing the game 2-2. And if we had even if we had one of them, I think we would have qualified. So that was hard to take, because it was a great bunch of lads as well. And you're talking about the social side of the game. And again, I don't just mean, don't get me wrong, the lads could have a few points, but I don't just mean that. It was a great group to be around. When I came back into international football, that things had changed in the respect that when we were going to meet up with a squad before we had the break in between, we'd say meet up at 12 o'clock on the Sunday. All the lads would fly in on the Saturday night, and we'd all get together and go and have a few drinks quite often, and have a bit of a get together, or we just meet up and we go for a meal, or we kind of do whatever. And when I came back into it, I just found that people would kind of turn up at 10 minutes to 12, and just like, right, we're here, and didn't quite have that same kind of feel to it and listen, don't get me wrong, football changed in that period of time as well, and there's a completely different outlook on football, and so the social side to it wasn't there as much. People were on the phones a lot more, and that, we spoke about that earlier on, but it just didn't have the same kind of feel for me when I went back in, the same atmosphere, the same kind of camaraderie in training, and that was just my feeling of it. Maybe other people have different opinions of it and different feelings of it, but that was my feeling of it.
Yeah, well, I think in many ways you got to play with a lot of kind of generational kind of players, like your Robbies. We actually never even mentioned John O'Shea there when we were talking before as well. It was unbelievable for Ireland, obviously throughout his career, but just so many, himself, Robbie, and all these types of players that you obviously got to play with Roy when he came back in then as well. So there was, in many ways, you did get to play with a lot of very good players at international level. I know maybe, as you said, coming back in, it wasn't the same, but I think we didn't have as good of a squad then, probably during the Trapattoni era as previously.
I would agree with that, and these were great players, but that I played with, but they were also great blokes as well. I mean, Graham Kavanagh, what a great bloke down there. Stephen Carr, what a great fella. Kenny Cunningham, brilliant, a captain, would organise everything, would do everything. Richard Dunn, what a bloke. Ian Hart, Lee Carsley, who we have mentioned, Steve Finnan, Robbie Duffer. I mean, been doing the pro license with Robbie and Duffer. They're still great blokes to this day. So many, Clinton, was brilliant around the place. Kev Kilban, haven't mentioned Kev Kilban, another. Yeah. You're talking. See, the thing for me is not that these were fantastic players. For me, these were great blokes, and these were blokes that I went into the squad and I'd look up to these, and they do so much to help me. They'd so much to help me. Like when I played with Lee Carsley, We played against Germany at home and we should have beat them. And me and Lee Carsley played in the middle of the park together. And he just said to me, Reedy, when I get the ball, I'll give it to you and you just go and play. And anything that I can do to help you, anything that I can do to support you, you just go and express yourself. And like, Carzo was playing brilliant every week for Everton, you know what I mean? And to kind of have somebody like that just give you that little bit of a G up, and that's Richie Dunn. Richie Dunn would say to me, "Really, if you give the ball, like, don't get me wrong, you wouldn't be saying give the ball away, but if you do give the ball away, don't worry about it." He says, "I need you to have the ball when I'm playing out in the back. I need you to show from the ball. So if you give the ball away, doesn't matter, but you need to show for me. I'm like, yeah, no problem. That's what I do. Give me the ball, I'll play." But to have that support from them, you know what I mean? It's fantastic. It's great, but that comes from, I suppose, it goes hand in hand. Great players, but great people as well. Fantastic people. Great. There was a great humility in that group of people that I loved. A real kind of down to earthness about them all, and the camaraderie was great. And it's a time that I look back on and very fond of it. And I speak. Very, very unlucky the way things turned out for Brian. I suppose at that point he was, someone say he's kind of hard done to, and it'd be difficult to kind of argue with that because his record as an Ireland manager was great. But Brian and Noel O'Reilly were particularly great at enhancing things like that. So they done it with the under-16 team. They done it with the under-18 team. They came in there and they were able to kind of harness that camaraderie that was there and improving it. And improve it and kind of really kind of make the most of it. And they've done the same with that Ireland setup, and they've done the same with the under-18s as well. Brian and Noel they were like a tag team. They were absolutely brilliant, and can't speak highly enough of Noel O'Reilly, who was was absolutely fantastic, and knew Noel from when I was under 16s, and he was brilliant. He was great. Just understand, so personable, understood how people were feeling. If you needed a little bit of a G up, Noel was kind of there to give it to you. And then Brian was just able to make you go out on a pitch and feel like it doesn't matter who you were playing against, you could go out and beat them. And that's what happened when we were in the under-16s. We're going up against Spain. We beat Spain. We beat Portugal. We beat Italy. Brian had us going out making us believe that we were better than them. And as it turned out, we were.
I think Stephen Kenny is kind of similar in that mode. From speaking to a lot of the younger lads now, they tend to say the same similar things. What you've just said to me there about just making, even Richie Telks, obviously he played with him under Dundalk, and he was just saying like he just makes you feel like you're the best player in the world. And it sounds to me like Brian Kerr was like that with yourselves, especially you growing up with him.
Yeah, in that respect, how they kind of get the best out of players, there would probably be similarities there between Brian and Stephen. Now, not in personality because they're very, very different, not in coaching styles because they'd be very, very different, but in how they have a way of getting the best out of a group of players, and first of all, an individual, and then a group of players, which is ultimately what you try and do as a coach. You need to try and understand the individual and try and improve him and try and make him a little bit better, and then bring it together into a team setting because it's a team sport, obviously, and if everybody can gel in. So, having met Stephen and met Stephen when he came into the job, 18 months ago, something like that. He's been absolutely fantastic with me, as Mick was before. And to get to understand the workings of Stephen and how he kind of operates has been great. And he's been a great support, and all them things that you've just said there about getting the best out of players. He seems to do that in abundance. And he said to me, he says, really, the lads, they'd run through a brick wall for him. And that's what you want. And if you can couple that with fantastic knowledge of the game, which Stephen has, fantastic tactical awareness, which is abundantly evident if you watch any of them 21s games, how prepared they are, how motivated they are, and then I think he's done fantastically well in surrounding himself with good people who understand the international setup with the 21s with Jim Crawford, and Keith as well, Keith Andrews, and then bringing Duffer into the fold as well. and I know from experience because I've worked with Keith. Played with him, and then we've done our pro license together. So we've done our A license together as well. So I know Keith's a fantastic coach, and then you talk about Jim and Jim's fantastic, just taking over the 21s, and it's brilliant. I worked with Jim when I was with the 18s. He brought me in to kind of help him and Dennis Hyland out, and fantastic knowledge of the game, and again, a great bloke, and somebody that I would see as Jim Crawford would be somebody that I would see as a kind of mentor kind of figure for me, somebody that I feel that I could pick up the phone, and he's got a real calmness about him and a real assurity about him. That's great to hear when you pick up the phone and you've just got an idea. It's great to hear that, man, I'm not too sure about that, but what about if you add this into it, then maybe you could have, that's great. Or yeah, that's good. Why don't? So it's good to be able to bounce these things off. And Jim is somebody who, for me, has been a massive help in my development as a coach, and developing as a person into a coach. If that makes sense, I don't know if I've explained.
I know what you mean.
I'm getting off the point a little bit and kind of moving it into coaching a little bit here, but I'm talking about the transition from player to coach. You have to get out of that playing mentality. You're not a player anymore, and you have a completely different outlook on it, and it's not easy. So you have to kind of try to learn how to understand the game in a little bit of a different way, because you're not just understanding it from your perspective anymore. You have to understand it from 11 players on the pitch plus possibly 8 or 9 on the bench, what you can have in international football.
Yeah, well, just before we go back to Forest and kind of finishing up there, we'll talk a bit about Blackpool as well. But it's obviously well documented, the stuff with Trapattoni. Don't really want to go into the politics or anything like that on it. But during that time, you had yourself, kind of Wezzo was coming in a little bit, and from a coaching perspective, do you find that at that time players like yourself found it really, really difficult because you were skillful, and it seemed as though, from a coaching point of view, Trapattoni's setup was ultra defensive. So for someone like yourself or Wezzo, or I think of any other creative players we had around that time, we're trying to break in, and you just found it really hard. And I don't really want to get into why you weren't in the squad anymore or anything like that, but I just mean purely from a coaching perspective.
Listen, the thing about it is the way that he wanted to set up. I found the way that he wanted to set up a little bit disrespectful to some of the players that we had. Take me out of it, take me out of it, and even just look at the players that he picked, or the players that he kind of left on the bench. The way that he set them up to play, I thought was a little bit disrespectful, and I know they had a little bit of short-term success. But I didn't think there was any kind of longevity in it. I didn't think there was any development of young players in it. I didn't there was no young players developed within that time that you could see progressively getting better over time. And it was a little bit disrespectful, I thought, to kind of put a team out on the pitch and kind of say, well, we're not really good enough to go and attack teams. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and attack every single team, because there's some teams in the international setup that you can't just go all out and attack because you get beat 6 or 7-0. But there was teams that we came up against that we had people like Damien Duff, Wes Houlihan, Robbie Keane. You can tell me that we can't go out and we can't outplay them. John O'Shea playing out in the back with Richie Dunn, Keith Andrews in the middle of the park. So, you're talking about players who can play football, and who had the ability to play football. And I just thought, I just didn't think that he helped the development of our players. I just thought it was kind of short-sighted kind of gains without seeing the bigger picture of developing Irish football. And I didn't really think about it too much at the time, about the impact that it had, but I do think that it impacted the growth and the development of a lot of young Irish players, and I think it kind of hindered our style and development, and I think we're only kind of getting back to kind of that over the last probably 4 or 5 years. I think it kind of it had a real impact on the grassroots level and of the development of young players, and I think that comes from a style of play. But listen, there was short-term success there, and they qualified for a couple of tournaments, and I know it didn't go particularly well when they got there, but they did qualify for the tournament, and that's kind of testament to the players, as much as anything. But I just felt that a kind of, I just think there wasn't very much to that. But I don't want to sound, I don't want, I don't want to come across and say, oh well, he's just saying, he's just saying that because Trapattoni never picked them, because I'm not like that, and I'm not kind of about that anymore. I'd like to think I've kind of outgrown.
I think you've matured.
Well, I have, and I'm purely seeing it now on the, and now that I'm looking at it with my coaching kind of hat on. I love developing players, I love seeing how they develop. I love seeing how they can improve from day to day, from session to session, and how they can take that into games. And I love seeing the trajectory that they take and where they can go and where they believe that they can go. And I say it to our players all the time. I say it to our Ireland under-18 players. I say it to Forest 23 players. I say, it's all right. I believe in you. I say, and when I'm with Ireland, Dennis Hoyland, we say we believe in you, but it doesn't matter whether we believe in you. You have to believe in yourself, because it doesn't matter if we believe in you. I love seeing that. I love seeing players develop tactically, technically, and I love seeing their personalities develop as they get a little bit older as well. And see the ones who really kind of stick out the chest and step up to the plate. And so, give you an example of now, I didn't work with him all that much, but as somebody that I've seen coming through the system recently, Jason Knight. I went away to a tournament and helped Jim and Dennis Hoyland out over in Pinatar a couple of years ago. Jason Knight played, Adam Ida played, and watching them, and you kind of see me think, yeah, these boys, they definitely have something about them. And then you see Adam getting into Norwich Force team, and see Jason Knight up the road from where I am now, up at Derby County, getting into Derby's Force team, and how well he's done. And there's a real belief about them players, and I love seeing that, and I love trying to be a part of that and trying to enhance that. And I think that's abundantly clear to see when you see the players coming through, the type of players that they are, the style of football that they want to play, and the type of characters. Because it's important that we develop characters as well, strong characters who are able to stand up to the rigours of football, because football can be a very hostile environment to be a part of if things aren't going particularly well for you. So you have to have that real resilience about you. So I like trying to develop that as well. I'd like to think I can develop that because I've been through that. I've been through these things that these young players are going through. So and I just feel, looking back on that time, that there wasn't too much of that going on within the Ireland setup, and I look at it now and it's flowing through it right the way up from Niall Harrison with the under 14s. We've never had an under 14 team before, but we've got it. So you're looking at the player ID from younger all the way up. Jason O'Donoghue, the 15s they've had a phenomenal season. You look at the 16s, Paul Assam, who's doing a fantastic job as well. Colin O'Brien has done a fantastic job over a very long period of time. Tom Moan with the 19s. Tom has got phenomenal results. And you consider the players that were taken away from under his feet before he went over to the tournament in Armenia, and what he was able to achieve in there. Jim Crawford doing the 18s job before me, what he's done with the 21s. Stephen with the 21s. Keith Andrews, Duffer's involved now. Robbie is being involved, and Mick as well, has to take his part. And I just feel there's a lot of positivity within Irish football at the minute, and it pleases me to kind of to say that. And I love seeing these I love seeing these pathways, for the young players coming through. We have these managers meetings every month where all the managers, and Mick was in them when he was in, and Stephen was in them, and we have all the managers all the way down, and Rude Doctor kind of leads it. If you've had games or you've had a tournament, then you do a presentation on your games, who you played against, what your team are doing, video clips, there's all these stuff. We're looking at trends in modern football. We're looking at where is our football going, how are we trying to improve. So there's a lot going on that probably people don't kind of get to see. That's really exciting. So we get to see.
I got to see it because I went out to do the cover the 15s game for Jason, and he brought us in. We did like an insightful video that they did like the briefing before the game against they played Australia and they beat them. They were like 2 years older, and he went through like the briefing and everything, and I was blown away by the level of insight. And then he spoke about how all the managers, like you said, from the 15s right up to the senior team, have all been basically doing the manager meetings once a month with Rude Doctor, as you said there. I think a lot of people had watched that, so if they haven't watched it, maybe they'll head over and watch it. But it has the clips of the lads playing against England and all that type of tactical stuff.
Yeah, well, if it's something that listen, that's not for everybody. Not people. A lot of people love football for just switching on the TV or going to watch a match and enjoying that, and that's great. But if you're if you're interested into the insight into it, then you should go and have a watch of it. And I've said to kind of Reid, and we spoke about it, and Reid has kind of agreed, and there's been other coaches have said it as well. We need to let people know a little bit more what we're doing and the work that's going on. So that insight that Jason kind of gave you, that you're able to put out there in the public domain, is great. And I love talking about it because it means a lot to me. And it means a lot to all the other managers, and it means a lot to Reid. And this is there's a lot of work. There's a fantastic and we call it kind of high performance culture. And that's what we're trying to constantly improve. Can we get a little bit better? Can we get a little bit better? Can we get a little bit better? How can we improve? How can we make this setup more professional? How can we get that extra 2-3% out of everything that we've got? How can we produce a bigger pool of players moving forward? All these things are stuff that mean a lot to us, and it's great to be able to do it.
Well, I do think you're right, though, as well, what you said about Trapattoni, because we did have really top players coming through at the time. I remember Seamus Coleman was flying and for some reason couldn't get in the team. And James McLean, I think, just about made the Euro squad. At the time, these players were doing well in the Premier League as well. But as you say now, not to really focus on the negative, on the more so on the positive side, it is great to see the likes of Troy Parrott getting his debut, Leo O'Connor, who else? Aaron Connolly, these types of players all got debuts under Mick as well. So the fact that now Stephen's worked with a lot coming through to add to what we have there is great to see. Yourself working at the underage, and hopefully you'll allow me to come out and cover one of your games with the under-18s and get an insight to what you guys do when you are playing next.
Yeah, listen, absolutely, because listen, there's nothing to hide in what we're doing. Now, you can't give away kind of team secrets and bits and pieces, but people need an insight into what we're doing. And I think that's why it was great that you kind of seen that, and it's important that we kind of do that, and I think we are, we're kind of getting there and in doing it, and Reid's done a fantastic job over the years and bringing this all together and making it more professional and moving it forward. So for me to be able to learn from him as well, he's been a fantastic help to me. Reid has always there if I need to bounce out and off him, fully aware that this is my first kind of head coach role, so always there to lend a bit of advice. But his knowledge and standing in the Ball Hall of Fame, with people like Johan Cruyff and and all the Dutch greats, so to be able to kind of tap into that for somebody like me, who I'm trying to learn and trying to get on in the game, is absolutely fantastic. But it's just another thing of where I see Irish football going. So much positivity kind of surrounding it, and we should be proud of it.
Yeah, when I hear you, I actually hear a lot of Jason Donoghue in what you're saying, because a lot of stuff he said, it sounds a lot of like what you're saying now. And I was kind of blown away being even in his company, how positive, and he was speaking about the high performance and dominating possession and everything like that. And it was just great to see and refreshing to hear the fact that we want Ireland to go out and dominate the possession against whoever it is. It doesn't matter. We want to go out and dominate the ball and go at them.
Yeah, well, listen, mindset That's what we have to continue to install in our players. We instill in our players. We've been doing it over the last few years, and we need to keep doing it with them. We need to keep letting them know you're good enough to compete on this world stage. And Stephen's done it from 21s level, going with them, and we dominated Italy with the 21s. Went over to Sweden, absolutely battered them at home as well. Played some great football. We can go up against these teams and compete. We just needed that belief, and it's coming true. And you can see it in Tom Moan's team's performance over in Armenia, and you see Collins under 17s when they played in the under 17 Euros over in England. The performances that they put in, they were absolutely fantastic. Lost on penalties to Holland. And Holland went on to win the tournament. So there's saying robbed in the game. Jimmy Corcoran got sent off, didn't he? In the penalties.
Yeah, coming off the line or something silly like
crazy that. Stuff going on. But again, these people are top class people. And another thing that I'll mention as well, just with regards to a different department of the FAI that's flying at the moment and doing really well, is the coach education department. Now I don't know I don't know with Niall O'Regan. I don't know how familiar you are with it or whether you've done that with them before, but you should probably get in touch with Niall and go and spend some time and see what they're doing, because there's some fantastic work going on. And Tom Moan is a coach educator. Paula Sam's a coach educator. Colin is a coach educator as well. Niall Harrison and Jason O'Donoghue, they're all coach educators and international managers as well. So well, Niall O'Regan excellent at his job. And Niall O'Regan's brilliant at what he does, he brings everything together, and he's very, very innovative. And he's got great rapport with all the people at UEFA, so the courses are run spot on, and he's got some great people there that work with him as well. So that's a very, very interesting department, and that can only help us if we're producing better coaches. Then that means that the players are getting a better level of quality coaching. And that will make them better players. It can't make them worse players. It make them better players. So the better coaches that we can produce, then the better the better chance we have of producing better players, because they're getting better information. They're tactically they're more astute. And then a lot of stuff is going on the mental side of the game as well. How can we make our players mentally better, mentally ready for and ready to take on the challenges of football? Because as we mentioned earlier on, football it's a harsh sport at times. So we have to be coaches and managers and psychologists and friends, and you have to be ready to give somebody a kick up the backside. You have to be ready to put your arm around them. But to do that, you have to understand the state of mind that they're in and how you can best help them. So there's a lot of work going on the mental side of the game as well as the tactical and technical.
Well, Andy, I could sit here and talk about Ireland and Irish football with you all day. I love it. But I'm conscious of the time, and I know I've had you on a long time. So I'll just lastly run through quickly your time at Forest. You spoke kind of already on your kind of Irish coaching, so we'll talk about your time at Forest and then getting into your time, what you're doing now, obviously with Forest then as well, and we'll finish on that if that's okay.
You on about when I came back to Forest to play?
Yeah, I'm kind of skipping over Blackpool a little bit, but I know, yeah, but
you're not missing much. So I came back to Forest, and it was my second time back at Forest. And I know people say don't you shouldn't go back and whatever, but my second time at Forest was actually really enjoyable, and played under some great managers as well. And Sean O'Driscoll, I thought, was a fantastic coach. He was really, really good. And then Billy Davis as well. Billy Davis was a fantastic coach, and played with some good players. And I really enjoyed my time when I came back, and we put together a couple of decent sides. And funnily enough, I suppose a little bit of irony, when I did get injured, when I done my groin, and I never kind of made it back from it. I was probably playing some of the best football that I'd ever played in my career. The season before kind of really, really well. We just missed out on the playoffs, and when I picked up my injury. So it was great to kind of come back and, finish my career at. We mentioned earlier how much the club means to me, and it still does now. I mean, my 8-year-old Oscar has just signed for the under-9s for next season. So that's a massively proud moment for me, and
I can
it's.
tell by the smile on your face.
Yeah, no, it is. It's massively proud, and it's not just because I'm a coach there or because I played there. He's actually earned it himself, which is absolutely great. He's kind of only been in there 6 months because I was kind of keen to keep him away from it until I thought it was kind of right, if there is ever a right time. But he wanted to give it a go, and he went down, and he's adapted to it brilliant, and he's came on loads in the last 6 months, so that was kind of great for him. And my role with the 23s. Chris Cohen, who's the head coach, is somebody that I played with, and he's somebody who's a very, very good friend of mine, and it just kind of fit in right. He was looking for somebody to kind of come in and help him out, because it's a big group of players to kind of look after him, very important, and he needed somebody to be able to bounce something off. I spoke to Reid Doctor about the possibility of doing it, and Reid seen it as a great idea. He was like, listen, coaching every day will only make you a better coach as long as it doesn't impact on your Ireland stuff. So I went in with Chris and spent the last kind of 4 months kind of working with him, and it's been great. And me and Chris are great friends, but we hadn't worked together in a coaching capacity, even though we played with each other. So you're always kind of thinking, and he was thinking as well, and spoken about, what's the dynamic going to be like? How is this going to work? Are we going to be able to kind of work together in a coaching capacity? Because you don't know. But it's been great. We've bounced off each other really well. As I said, we're good friends. We've got it's a very, very similar philosophy on football and how we like to play, in possession and out of possession, how we like our teams to keep the ball, where we like to build up from, how we like to get our forward runners in, where we like to play the balls, and also when we lose the ball, how we like our teams to press. So our philosophies are very, very similar, but we're very different characters. So we'd like to think that we bounce off each other in that respect, and it's gone very, very well. We've seen, the players have been great that we've worked with, and you get to a stage where some players need to move on, and that's part of football. Other players, there will be a pathway to the first team for us, and then you bring the other players through from the 18s to try and develop them, and it's an ongoing process. So it's something that I've loved it. It's been great being on the grass every single day. I mean, listen, the Ireland stuff is great. It's been brilliant. I've loved it. I can't tell you how much I've learned. The one downside, I would say, from international football coaching and managing is that you're not on the pitch every single day. To be on the pitch every single day is fantastic. So for me to be able to do that at Forest and then still do the Ireland stuff as well, it's been great. And I think I've come on kind of so much in a very, very short space of time, because you're on the training pitch every single day. You're seeing things a lot quicker. You're dealing with situations in real time, as opposed to kind of building up to it for kind of 2 months or wherever it may be. So to be able to deal with that and get your mind thinking quicker, you just get a feel for it a little bit more. So it's been great, and I've absolutely loved it. But the main goal from it is that we get players ready to go into Forest first team, because that's what it's all about. It's not about, we've won loads of games since come in with the 23s. The league is finished now, but they were top of the league by 8 points, I think, with game in hand. The lads done great. We'd lost probably one game in 4 months or something like that, and that's brilliant. That's great, and it's great for everybody. But the main goal is to get these players ready for the first team, get these players into the first team. How can we prepare them? And that's what our main goal is.
Well, like, just from talking to you, and I read stuff about your kind of mental state of mind, that you kind of weren't in a good place previously, and it just seems from talking to you here now that since you've taken on this coaching role, both at Forest, obviously Ireland first, but you're just seem much happier. Maybe it's because you're more active all the time and you're always thinking and getting yourself out there. But it's great to see, and even from looking and speaking to you here, how passionate you are about it. I can tell you're going to go on to be a great coach anyway.
Well, listen, we spoke about it earlier on. When I last spoke with my parents, and it before kind of my B license to my A license, but I wasn't too sure whether coaching was, you know, I always thought, yeah, I'll go into it, but I wasn't too sure if I was fully in it. And the stuff from my mum and dad kind of really hit me hard, you know, as it would. And in and around the time Lee Miller passed his way as well, which was a big shock to us all. And, you know, I kind of struggled, and you know, my fiance and my two kids, you know, were absolutely brilliant with me. And then the opportunity came up to work with the Ireland stuff and do the Ireland bits, and it really kind of gave me something to really kind of focus on, which was very important. And then you just really get a buzz for it, and it's a completely different buzz to playing. But you really get a buzz for coaching and how much it means to you, and it means a hell of a lot to me, and I'm really into it, and I'm learning all the time, and I just constantly want to try and improve, because I feel that if I can make myself the best coach that I can be, then that gives me a better chance. Ultimately I want to do. I've lived the dream in the fact that I've played all the way through, so I want to try and help other young players try and improve and try and live that dream as well. You know, for the moment, the young player development is what I'm really into. At some stage in the future, I would like to move into the senior football, but for the moment, developing young players and try and help them achieve that dream of that I was so lucky to kind of live for so long is a real kind of driving factor for me.
Yeah, well, it's I think I'll leave it on that, because it's we've kind of touched on everything, and you've went into serious detail, and I am conscious of the time. It's been over an hour and a half I've kept you, so we will leave it at that. And Andy, I just want to say, you know, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I grew up watching you as a kid, and you're one of my favorite players. To have you on, I know we've been kind of pushing it off a little bit, but to have you on, it's been definitely worth the wait. So thank you so much for coming on.
Say, just while I have you on, I think it's great to see what you're after doing, and I'm not just saying it just because you're on, but what you're after doing with the Football Fan TV thing, I think is absolutely brilliant. And we followed it closely, and I know you've spoken to Keith, my brother, before about different bits and pieces. So to see how you've developed it and where you've come from in the last couple of years to where you are now is absolutely fantastic, and you should be very proud of what you've done. You should be very proud of it. So well done on that from me to you.
Thanks very much. Like, subscribe if you're not already, and if you don't follow Andy already, follow him on Twitter there. Andy Reid XI is his Twitter handle. But listen, as I say, from my own point of view, I've actually thoroughly enjoyed this. It's been absolutely fantastic, and thanks again. Really appreciate it. Sorry for keeping you so long, though.
No, it's grand. I'm sorry about the Wi-Fi connection. I know you've got a bit of editing to do now on that before you kind of get it out. So sorry about that. Well, that's going to be a bit of work for you, but hopefully you kind of get it all right.